Shireen and JD from Moji Masala, and we're here on a gloomy Saturday making chicken Rasedar, which is actually not a spice packet that we sell yet. We are beta testing it, but we're well along in terms of beta testing. This is probably round 3 now. We've gotten a lot of amazing feedback from our users. A lot of this came last summer in the fall, and so we think we've got it down. We thought it'd be a great opportunity to give you a sense of what's coming. And also just to sort of see, it's a lot of the same steps that are in a lot of the other dishes. Sauteing the onion, the tomato, adding the spices, making the curry paste, the wet paste, adding your meat or vegetable. Same steps, kind of get more familiar with it, and then you kind of get to see what's coming along. This chicken curry we're doing, because if you've been eating our Rogan Josh, you'll know it's a very complex masala. It's delicious, and it's a little bit more celebratory, a little bit more once in a while. The chicken curry we're doing, chicken Rasedar, which is really broadly known as chicken curry, is a type of dish that's it's like your weeknight dish that you would make in meat-eating homes, obviously. And it's delicious, it's lighter, it has like less black cardamom, which is very earthy, and it has fennel seed, our recipe at least, that my mom makes, has fresh ground fennel, which is slightly sweet, so very accessible. Kids tend to love it. It's easy, it's quick, it's delicious. And so let me show you what's involved here. Really simple stuff. This will be our future spice blend right here. So there is the cumin, coriander, garam masala, the fresh ground fennel, good chunk of it, as you can see. Some nice Kashmiri chili for the heat, a little turmeric, garlic, ginger. In a lot of curries in general, and particularly in this one, we are also going to add some minced garlic and ginger. I didn't actually have a lot of Indian garlic ginger paste, but I had just those grocery store jars of minced ginger, minced garlic. Some full fat yogurt, oil, like a high heat oil. This happens to be canola oil. We usually use sunflower oil though. A little salt, which we're gonna add. About 1.5 cups of chopped onion, yellow onion please, and 1 large kind of beefsteak tomato chopped up. And then the chicken. This is about 5 chicken thighs. Now for this, you want to use a dark meat. You can use a whole chicken, is about 2 pounds, but you want it to be bone in and skinless, which I know people are like, I can't find bone in skinless. So I want to just show you how easy it is to take the skin off of the bone in skin on chicken. Very easy, and like every little bit doesn't have to come off. You just literally yank it off. I like to use gloves. That's me. You don't have to. And so instead of like going for the boneless because you couldn't find the skinless bone in, just get the regular one that's more commonly available and just rip off the skin. That's it. It's so easy. And keeping the bone in is really, I would just highly recommend it. It ends up being so much more flavorful. It will still be good. I'm not going to super discourage you, especially if it's what's in your fridge. But if you're actually shopping, go for bone in. If you want to use breast, don't use purely chicken breast. Just do a dark meat, light meat combination just to get some more of that flavor into the curry base. So, see, that's all there is to it. Now that's ready to go. Okay, and so I'm going to do here, take these off now. We're going to move over to the stove. And just to explain quickly what I'm going to do, I'm going to get these a nice golden brown, these onions. Probably takes about 5 minutes. It's a good chunk of onion, 1.5 cups. And then after that's browned, we're gonna add the tomato. Gonna make a nice paste. Add the spices and the salt. And add the chicken and the yogurt. And that's kind of it. Then we're gonna let it simmer about 45 minutes, about 25 minutes or so in about 1 cup of water. And while that's simmering, I found some delicious, beautiful cilantro. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna make a cilantro chutney. We have a recipe on our website already. And it's just some fresh cilantro. You know, I like to do cilantro mint mixed, but I just go with whatever I can find that's fresh, that looks good. The leaves are green, they're not black, they're not yellow, they're not overly wilted. This was beautiful. I went with just cilantro. A little yogurt, a few walnuts, a little salt. So we're going to grind that up later. And what I'm going to show you, what I love to do is portion it out in a freezer tray when I'm done. And then I just take cube by cube as much as I need. So I have my garnish for anytime I'm eating. So JD, let's go over to the stove. I'm gonna do this, do medium-high heat. Kind of a pretty wide-based pot. It's pretty flexible. You just don't, you want your meat to be layered. Let it get hot. Bring this oil over. Bring everything over while it's getting hot. So this is an interesting dish because it's easy and accessible, but it also does feel really special. It's just delicious. And I think there's something about that touch of fennel with the garam masala and the more earthier. It's so balanced. And it just feels really, really like rewarding and delicious. And I love it. I love it. So even though it's like a regular weeknight dish, it's pretty special. Okay, so this is hot. I'm going to pour the oil. So this is about a 1/4 cup. Really just the idea is to well coat your pan so you can brown your onions. Okay. Give that 30 seconds or so. And by the way, if anyone's on and is interested in beta testing this recipe, please let us know. You can send us an email at info@mojimasala.com or obviously just send a message through Instagram. Okay, brown. I like to chop them fine, just because you really want it for the flavor and the thickness of the curry, more than you want to be like eating the onion. So you want it to kind of really melt into the dish. Now, if you like that kind of chopped up onion, that works well, like where you taste the onion and it's sitting on it. You can sort of brown an onion if you want later as a garnish. But this part, the real purpose is to create the texture of the curry and obviously the flavor, to get that flavor really deep into the curry.
While Shireen's doing that, it's good to know.
Yes, so, sorry, little sidetrack there. So these spices, I don't know if you guys have been following as much, but we have been working super, super hard to, I'm just going to show you these again, to get our spices really as high quality as we can. And while that's really easy for things like garlic, ginger, and even now turmeric, let me show you there, it's kind of hard for Kashmiri chili, for a black cardamom, even for green cardamom, fennel seeds to some extent. Very hard to get a high quality, organic level spices. So we have literally been putting a lot of time and energy all over the world, talking to distributors and suppliers and getting as close to the, as close to the farm as we can, to really make our spice blends uniquely, extremely high quality. I think that's really hard to find in a lot of Indian spice blends right now. I know when I would shop for my own Indian spices, I would try, and it was really hard. And while they're clearly going to be more expensive, the crops are smaller often. It's really worth it. And you do, as much as it's good for you, non-irradiated, very, very minimal pesticide usage, etc. It's, you do taste it. It just sort of makes it even more fresh. So our spices are actually, you're eating spices that were from the most recent crop. Whereas, if it's not fresh, and it's not unhealthy, but you could be eating like 3 or 4 year old ground spices, or they kept it even longer and then ground it. Because the expiration date technically can be quite long, but that doesn't mean the freshness is there. So these are starting to get translucent, you can see. So I think a couple of people also tried this, you know, even though the bone-in really does matter, or just add a lot of flavor. A couple of people did try just chopped up, more of like a chicken tikka style, small pieces of chicken. And it came, you know, they thought it was delicious. So, you know, I think for the next go around, we might try that. Just to see, compare the flavor.
For any of you who've just joined, this is Shireen cooking from Moji Masala.
Hello.
And JD, and Shireen's making chicken Rasedar, otherwise known as chicken curry.
And yeah, as I was explaining, you know, the recipes really vary home to home with the chicken curry. It's like just evolves and evolves as you move throughout the specific neighborhoods to then the regions, and then, you know, and then really to the rest of Asia. A lot of this sort of chicken curry style dishes you'll find all over Asia. We see in Malaysia, you know, obviously Japanese food has a sort of equivalent of a chicken curry. Very different though, very, very different. Okay, I think we are getting there with the brown onion. So now I do keep handy this cup of water, and I want JD, can you zone in on the browning part of the pan? So my pan is browning. I'm gonna add a little water, not to make it a liquid, but just enough so that my pan stops burning, the water gets absorbed, and then I can keep sauteing my onions to the color that I want, because, you know, as we've explained many, many times before, it's really high heat cooking. A lot of the flavor, the texture comes from really cooking on high heat, so you have to make sure that your pan doesn't burn in the process, because you really want to get the right color, the right level of cook. Each step: cooked onion, cooked tomato, cooked meat. Okay. I think we need maybe one more minute here. Yeah, so maybe one more minute here, and then going to do the the tomato. And now the big part of the tomato, I think a lot of people are not quite sure when the tomatoes cook, and there is a tendency to undercook the tomato. But what you want to see is the tomato really melt away into the dish, and then you continue to really kind of fry it until you see, or saute it until you see some of that oil separate. I'm going to zoom in. We've done this every time, but I think it helps. When you see that oil separate, that's your sign, like, okay, I think I'm good here. I can add my spices. It's a liquidy texture. The colors turn from like bright red to darker red, and the oil is separated. That's what you're like, and that usually takes 3 to 4 minutes. Okay. All right, so these are like a nice light kind of golden brown. I'm gonna add this tomato rather. So the other thing I want to explain while I'm sauteing this, so a big thing about Moji Masala cooking is that we're trying to keep the flavor super authentic, and we're really trying to reduce all the steps to making these dishes. And while we're cooking them, they look like really straightforward. In every dish, we probably eliminated 5 to 7 sort of 3-minute steps to make it easier and more accessible. So with the curry chicken, typically what you do is you'd either fry the chicken first, or you're really being very traditional about it, you'd boil it in a couple of spices, then you'd fry the chicken, and then you'd do what we're doing now. This would actually be your 3rd step, and your 3rd dish, your 3rd pot, and then you'd add the chicken to this base. So we have, part of why the beta test took so long is we wanted to skip those steps. We wanted to skip just having extra steps. We wanted to skip frying, unnecessarily frying, adding all the extra oil. But what that does is create a certain texture. So instead what we're going to do is when this tomato and onion is nicely kind of turned into a paste, we are going to put the chicken in while it's still dry before adding the water, and kind of brown it in this dish here with the spices, tomato, and the onion, and then add the water. And that's kind of a nice compromise between getting a texture that's not too mushy and not having a lot of extra dishes, a lot of extra steps, and a lot of extra oil. that I don't think we necessarily need. So you can see this this tomato is a little water here. You see that browning part? The tomato is cooking pretty fast. It's melting right in. And looking good. Yeah, so it's looking good. So this is like halfway there. I just want to zoom in. Yeah, so halfway there. But as you can see, what you don't want is those bits to turn black, that pan to turn black, the onion bits to turn black. So you just kind of keep that in. You're talking about a tablespoon or two each time. There, tablespoon right there. Wipe off the edges a little bit. Oh yeah, good point. Let's see if they can see it. Do they need that light? Okay. Not sure what it's looking like there. Sorry we're still working on our lighting. So trying to get this kitchen really.
Move to the side. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, okay, so let's see if our oil is thick. Maybe one more minute here. A little more water. Okay, maybe we can zoom in a little bit, JD, so they can see those bubbly, oily parts there. So that's what's going on there. The oil is kind of starting to separate. The tomatoes kind of nicely melted in. I think if this were my mom, she'd be going another minute. A little bit darker. Should probably use a little bit more oil than I'm using here, but kind of keep it on the healthier side. So I have this tendency, I'm like, oh, I think it's done. And then I'm like, oh, what will my mom say? She'll probably be like, another minute. All the little, and really, this is the difference between mild flavor, or okay flavor, and amazing flavor. It's just like really kind of knowing when each step is ready. It's like, it's not hard. It's just a little experience, not so technique driven, as you can see. But it's really just being a little bit patient and knowing when is the right time. So I'm going to go ahead and add the spices. So I'm going to just sprinkle the salt, because I don't know where I put it.
Salt is here.
Oh, here. Thanks. So this is about 1 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which you can adjust your salt at the end, so don't over salt. It's probably just right. Now I still have my water handy because I'm going to add all my spices. So again, typically you'd probably add these one by one, and there's multiple steps to incorporating the fennel in. You know, we're eliminating that just to make it easier, and I don't think you're sacrificing, you know, maybe you're sacrificing 5% of the flavor doing it this way.
You want to talk a little bit about the spices that are going to go into this spice pack?
Yeah, so you know what, when you stepped away, I was telling them about how, you know, the garam masalas really are anchored, but how hard we've worked on these spices to get them. Just need a little more water.
Well, which spices are going to go into the chicken stuff? Yeah.
So it's, yeah, for those of you who just joined, it's going to be, of course, Moji's garam masala, cumin, coriander, fennel, chili, garlic, ginger. I'm actually going to add this.
So that's the garlic ginger.
Garlic ginger.
So how do you know when to put in the chicken?
Okay, so when your paste is done.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good question. But this is kind of the base of all of the dishes. You get your flavor. This is your flavor. Your dish can only taste as good as this base. So this base has to be fully cooked. The masala has to be cooked too, because the masala, it's kind of like, think of it as raw. These are seeds. These are seeds that we've ground up. They need a little heat to open up. They need to sort of become a little less bitter for some of them, a little more flavorful for others. So, you know, and you can really tell, like if you kind of zoom in now, JD, you'll see like, okay, it's turning brown, it's becoming more consistent, it's looking like a paste. If the oil is starting to bubble through, it's starting to, it's just like, it's almost instinctive. You're like, oh, this feels like it's kind of getting cooked. So it doesn't have that raw look. The smell is there, it's like balanced. There's not one thing I'm really smelling. So this is looking good. I do need more water. Probably good to, in general, it's probably good to have 2 cups of water on hand. I always say 1, but I'm like, so I don't want it too watery at this point because I still do want to kind of like brown my chicken a little bit in here. Okay, where is my chicken? Where it is. So now I'm going to, so I took my 5 chicken thighs. I'm going to get sort of flatten them a little bit. Yeah. I'm just going to kind of let each side cook.
You generally
About 3 to 4 minutes.
You generally poke holes in the chicken?
Keep it up. And this one, I mean, I guess you could. It wouldn't be a bad thing. You typically do it for marinades, so when it's in the fridge, it's kind of absorbing in there. This should get in there because we're going to cover it in water, but it's actually a great habit to do. It certainly does not hurt. It only takes like a minute or 2 if you wanted to do that. So this is going to kind of just sit in the spices, get a little, we're really just trying to get a little texture. So it's not, just doesn't get too mushy. There we go. Let that cook. So this 5 thighs is just, you know, this, we kind of went with 2, you can do this much bigger serving. We went with 2 pounds, fits nicely in a normal size kind of larger pot. It is kind of the right amount for people to share, or like share for 2 and have leftovers, or share for a larger family, and it's just the right amount. So I think 2 pounds is always good, because you also don't want to overstuff your pot. It just doesn't help with, and most people don't want to cook like 3 pounds in a big pot and so on and so forth. But for those of you interested, it's very easy to like double this recipe if need be.
But this is what would go in 1 pack.
Yes, so we've sort of adjusted 1 pack for 2 pounds of meat. It's kind of where I'm going with that. And I'm just kind of making sure nothing's burning, but I don't want to add too much water unless I need to, because, as we said, we're trying to brown a little bit, so we don't want too much liquid yet. Just scraping the side a little bit. Okay, mine looks like it's kind of cooking. Yep, sort of cook. I'm going to flip it. See, that's it. You just want a little bit cooked on each side. Little texture. Amazing. No frying. It's absorbing this spice while we're doing this, which is great. I know it does smell so good. And again, like, I was really taught to cook with balance and flavor. So like when you're cooking, you really can't distinguish what you're smelling. It smells great. There's like, yes, you smell a little fennel, a little garlic, some earthiness. It could be the cumin, the coriander, the garam masala. It's just really the balance. The balance is what, aside from making it delicious, and not everybody cooks that way, so I don't want to overemphasize that, but I do find it's like, becomes more accessible, because something's too garlicky, maybe someone doesn't like garlic, so on and so forth. This is really just about full flavor. You taste the meat, you taste the spices, you taste a little bit of heat. The heat should kind of more finish. It shouldn't really be like, oh, so spicy. That's why we use the Kashmiri chili. So it's just the balance makes it, I just think it makes it more of a broader experience, and I think more people are inclined to, at your dinner table or your lunch table or your party, are inclined to kind of enjoy it. I'm gonna add a little water because I'm in here. Okay. Just on the end here. So now the yogurt, at this point, you can do the yogurt or you can't do the yogurt. It adds a little texture, has a little creaminess, has a little, just makes the curry a little different. It's not really required. I am going to do it here, but this step is, you should feel free to skip. And then once this is kind of well blended, we're just going to...
And what kind of yogurt did you use?
Oh, very good point. Full fat. If you're going to use yogurt, you don't obviously have to use it, but please use full fat. If you use lower fat, even 2%, it's kind of going to break. It's just going to like separate.
Can you use Greek yogurt?
You need the fat. Yeah, it's good to use Greek yogurt because this is just a nice texture, nice and thick. You don't have to add the water because we're adding water to the dish itself. So there we go. And the other way you really can do this if you want to do the yogurt is you can do it the Rogan Josh way, which is you can marinate it in the yogurt with all the spices, chop the onion, and then just cook up the whole thing. You will lose the texture, a little bit of the chicken. You know how we sort of browned it a little bit, but it does work. It tastes good. Okay. So that looks kind of nice, well coated. Everything's blended in. And now we're just going to add probably about 1.25 cups of water. But you don't want to, I'm sorry, filtered water here. Okay. With the water, it's not so much about measuring it perfectly because it depends on the pot you use and so on. But basically, you want your chicken to cook. But if you put too much water, you're going to have to simmer it down longer so that it. So 1.25 cups is about right. I'm just going to start with a cup and see how that goes here. Maybe a cup's right.
Do you leave the lid on or do you keep it
Yes,
off?
we're going to put the lid on. We're going to bring this to a boil. And then we're going to turn it to medium low. Right now, we've been cooking at medium high the whole time. So you really only go lower on the heat. Yeah, this cup of water looks about right. I just want to show that it's almost covered. It's in the right size pot and it's almost covered. So the net result is going to be that the chicken's going to get cooked in about 25 minutes. I'm not going to get left with too much liquid because you're going to have to reduce it if you're left with too much liquid to get the flavor. Otherwise, just water, right? So you always want to reduce the water. A lot of it's going to reduce naturally. So the idea is not to have to waste too much time reducing at the end. So I think this is about right. And if you don't reduce it, all the flavor will be just diluted. Okay, so there it's boiling. It's going to medium well, thank you. What's going on? Actually, my pot's centered. Okay. And that's going to need about 25 minutes. You should definitely check on that. You don't want your chicken sticking to the bottom. So just make sure it's not sticking. If you have a very strong stove, you can go your heat a little lower, vice versa. If your stove's a little weaker, maybe go to medium, or if it's electric, medium might be the right setting. The idea is to let it just fully cook, and it's more than a simmer, a little bit more than a simmer. So while we're probably going to come back to show you that final dish, but in the meantime, I did want to just show you how easy these chutneys are amazing. I mean, there's so many kinds, and we're going to work our way and show you more and more chutneys. But again, this is just cilantro. Oops, didn't catch that black one. Yogurt, salt. I like walnuts, not required. And you know, it's like about a tablespoon, about a quarter cup of walnuts, tablespoon of yogurt, 1 bunch of cilantro, and I am going to, I hope this goes in. There we go. All right. So now, one of the things, it's not so measurement specific. If you wanted this to be more of a dip, for example, I didn't put any chili in this. I'm not going to put any chili in this. I just want more of a fresh flavor. But you can adjust your heat by adding 2 chilies, no chilies, really spicy chilies. Green chilies, I think, add a ton of great flavor. If you want to keep the flavor fresh, you can remove the seeds and just put the outer layer of a green chili or a jalapeno, because it does add really nice fresh flavor. That's the idea with chutneys. They can be spicy, but they're using herbs, fresh herbs. I like to use the stems. A lot of the flavor of cilantro is in the stems. So for when I do the cilantro chutney, I use the stems. But it's sort of a balance of what works for you of being fresh and spicy. And the only thing is, as you're grinding, you may have to add more yogurt or a little bit of water just to keep it moving. Not more than that. Dry because it's supposed to be kind of more liquidy, and that's because I used the Greek yogurt, I know. So I am going to add a little Greek yogurt, but then I'm also going to add a little water. Again, a little bit, because you don't want this runny, you know, it should have a little texture to it. So let's see here. Add a little more yogurt. That should be good to keep it moving. And that's how you judge. You just judge by how thick it is and if it's moving. There, now it's moving really easily. And that is it. Taste it. Yummy. So fresh. The green color is amazing on the table. And it works with everything. There's really nothing you can't sort of complement with like a nice green chutney. It's really delicious. And as summer approaches and stuff, we're gonna have like radish chutneys that are very fresh, like ground up radish with just salt and a little yogurt and a little spice. Delicious condiment with like our fish masala, great for barbecuing, as a condiment for barbecuing. So, you know, despite people thinking if it's so heavy, it really transitions through the seasons well to be kind of light, enjoyable, meze type fare even, if you want to do it that way. So we'll be doing more of that as the weather gets better. That's kind of it. We'll come back and show you the final dish, and
thanks for joining.
If you want to try it out, let us know. Bye. Chicken Rasedar. Bye.
Also known as chicken curry.
A little anti the word curry. Okay.
Bye.